And Jamaica's national champion, Kishane Thompson, sent another strong message to the world, lasting 9.85 seconds to take the men's 100 meters at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon. Thompson says he's confident there's even more to come.
I'm the only one that can stop me. I don't say that to brag, but to be honest, once I better my execution, amazing things gonna happen. It's step by step from here.
It was another commanding performance from the national champion, who held off Britain's Zonil Hughes at 9.91, while compatriot Akeem Blake finished fifth in 10.03. Meanwhile, St. Lucia's sprint queen, Julien Alfred, ran a strong 10.77 for second in the women's 100. Suffering her first defeat of the season behind America's Melissa Jefferson Wooden, Jamaica's Tina Clayton placed fourth in 11.02. Well, our track and field analyst, Leighton Levy, he joins us for the recap. Welcome to the show, Leighton. How are you this afternoon?
Good, Mariah. How was your weekend?
Oh, my weekend was good, Leighton. I ran into you on the weekend. That was good.
Yeah, that was a bit of a pleasant surprise as well, yes.
All right. Well, you know what
stop.
was not a pleasant surprise? Because we were expecting it. Kishane Thompson, and boy, oh boy, he didn't have the start we expected, but he still got the job done.
Yeah, he got the job done, but there's clearly still a lot of work left to be done for Kishane Thompson. As he mentioned, he needs to put the race, a proper race together. He was fine up to about 75 meters on Saturday, and then he started to overstride. He did not relax. We saw that in Paris last year where he tightened up and it cost him the gold medal. I think he needs to, there's some more, I'm sure Stephen Francis will be working with him on that. The reality is that he ran a good 75 meters. The last 25 meters need some work still. In fact, if you should be critical, it was not necessarily his best race, and he still ran 9.85. So that tells you where he's at this season. And he still has 2 months to go before the Tokyo World Championships. So I suspect that Stephen Francis will be focusing on some of those elements that we saw that will make him even faster. And that's scary to believe, because 9.85, notwithstanding, regardless of where it was, people remember that back, Leroy Burrell had that world record at 9.85 back 20 years ago. So, it's still a very fast time. The thing is that he still has work to do, and it's going to be necessary work, because when we saw in that race, Daniel Hughes, we saw Trevon Bromell, and they are going to be coming to be even faster in Tokyo. So he's going to have to improve on that last 25, 30 meters of the race. Actually, funny enough, just as the race ended, I got messages from about 2 former Olympic gold medalists who said the very same thing I was thinking. He needs to relax more at the end of in the last 30 meters and maintain his form a little bit better, and he should be somewhere in the 960s range of the 100 meters, which would probably in this era make him unbeatable.
Leighton, but I was looking at that race, right, and I remember the discussion that we had on Friday, I think it was, about the methods that Stephen Francis, his coach, usually utilizes with the athletes in his camp. And I got the impression that he almost looked a little bit leggy, but you pointed out just now that he was actually overstriding as he was reaching for the line. But is there anywhere in the narrative that, in the preparation for this race, that something would have happened, or whether he was asked to do a particular thing, or in the warm-up ahead of this race, that would have led to him run like that? Because I've never seen him really run like that in the last 30 meters of a race.
Oh, yeah. You saw that at the Olympics last year. You saw it at the National Championships last year as well.
It wasn't that bad, I don't think.
No, because you're looking at it from a naked eye as a layman. But when you look at the race, for example, in Tokyo, in Paris last year, when Fred Curley drew on his shoulder, and you watch that race again, you will see his shoulders go up, his neck got tight, and his strides shortened because he was tense. And of course, then he started to reach for the line, which actually slows you down, because your torso moves forward, your legs don't come up as high, which means that you're slowing down faster than the field behind you, which is why Noah Lyles was able to catch him. We saw some signs of that again on Saturday, and it's something I think he needs to work on. And I think, but it's if you're willing to do the work necessary and trust himself and trust the process, he will learn to relax. And if he does that, you'll be surprised to see how fast he can run. If you look at, for example, at Bolt back in 2009 in the semifinals of the 100 meters. Bolt literally stopped running in the semifinals after 65 meters and still ran 9:89. That is an example of how you relax late in races. You saw that in Beijing in 2008 as well, when he knew he had the race run, started to beat his chest and still broke the world record. The relaxation in the last 25, 30 meters of the race is crucial
Yes.
to maintaining your speed and being able to run the fast times that we know he's capable of running.
Yeah, Leighton, a quick comment on Akeem Blake. He finished 5th in 10.03.
I think it's probably just the travel. I think Akeem is still getting used to the idea of traveling and running well. He just ran a PB at the national championship, so his body was still probably screaming out for some rest. I mean, as did Kishane as well. When you run a PB, your body literally rebels against you because you're pushing it to new limits. So that's probably what affected Akeem, who is smaller and not necessarily as strong as Kishane is.
Yeah, now over to the women's side, the women's 100 meters. Julien Alfred suffering her first defeat of the season, and Melissa Jefferson Wooden 10.75. She meant business.
Yeah, it was a close race. I've said it from the start of this season that the rest of the women in the world are running for one medal in Tokyo, all things being equal, because these are the two women who are going to be contending for gold and silver in perhaps both events in Tokyo in 2 months' time. What we saw was Melissa Jefferson carrying the form, what we saw from her at Grand Slam track 1073, and carrying it here 1075 into a minus 1.5 win, which is about a 1067 wind legal. Well, zero wind actually, which is frightening. And similarly, Julien Alfred 1077. After not getting out of the blocks very well, Julien Alfred, so she had to play catch up for most of the race. But when you're a 10-7 athlete, cannot run down a 10-7 athlete, which is what you saw in that race. But one of the reasons why she wasn't able to catch her. But my information is that Julien was, and look, this is just what I know. I don't know what happened with Melissa Jefferson coming in. And I was told that she was in excellent shape and perhaps the shape of her life, which manifests in how she's been running for the past few weeks. But I was told that Julien Alfred was loaded to some degree coming into this race, which would not necessarily allow her to emerge from the blocks as best as she would have liked, which means that she suggested that she had heavy legs, which is an indication of what we saw from her, which allowed Melissa Jefferson to get away from her early in the race. If you look at, by comparison, what happened in Paris last year, Julien got out of the blocks like a bat out of hell, the proverbial bat out of hell, and of course she wasn't able to be caught. Had she got out of the blocks similarly here, maybe we would have seen a 1073 or a little bit faster. So the thing is this, what it comes down to is that both these women are going to be hard to beat come Tokyo, based on the form that they had so far. And I know their respective coaches are going to look at what this race meant to both of the athletes, look at the things that they can improve. But if I was Julien Alfred, I wouldn't worry too much. If you remember last year, Julien Alfred lost in Oregon again to Shakira Richardson and then came back to Paris and won handsomely. This is a loss that would have probably just given her a wake-up call of what she needs to do.
Before I move on to my next question, just to highlight to viewers who don't really know what loaded means, Leighton?
It means that she probably lifted heavy during the course of the week. Not probably, she definitely lifted heavy during the course of the week. So she would come into the meet not fresh. Her legs and body would be tired in recovery from heavy weights work, heavy program where she'd probably be running 150s, etc. And but more significantly, weight work in the gym, lifting heavy, which would mean that her legs would not be as fresh as they would be normally had she prepared. Had this been Tokyo, for example, she would have been a lot fresher coming into this meet.
So Tina Clayton finishing fourth in 11.02 seconds, right? On the back of a superb performance at the national trials. Is it a matter of her getting to know her speed as well as her body's ability to recover from such a fast time?
Again, yeah, as I said earlier, when you're on a PB, she ran 10:81, which is a big PB for her. Her body would still be recovering a week later to accommodate the new paradigm, and not necessarily able to replicate that performance a week later after traveling, significantly traveling across 2 time zones to go to Oregon to run in this meet. So that's probably part of the reason why she didn't run as fast as she ran at national championships last week. Because anybody will tell you that when you set a new PB, your body is taken into a new realm, and often enough, you're not able to replicate that performance on short notice. So 11:03 and coming fourth, I think, is not something that she'd particularly be worried about. But knowing that going forward, she'll be ready to run a lot faster in 2 months' time. So I wouldn't worry too much about the performance or the time. I think all of those athletes in the top 5 or 6 would pretty be. I mean, of course, Marie Jose Toulouse shut me up as well. A season's best 1090 into that minus, which means that she's probably in 10-7 shape as well. She was stuck in Trinidad for a while, but back in California with John Smith, she's getting back to her best. So clearly she's ready to run fast as well. So it's about the only athlete I think in that race would probably be worried about her performance would be Shakira Richardson, 11:19, a season's best. But that injury that she picked up in February that prevented her from progressing along where she would want to be at this point of the season. Does she have enough time in 2 months to run 10:6 or 10:75 or 10:7, anything? Um, the argument is still, I mean, it's still up in the air whether or not she'll be able to get to that level in time to be a contender in Tokyo. Not that it's impossible, but it's unlikely at this point that 2 months out that she's not able to break 11 seconds yet. We'll see what happens in 2 months. But certainly, I think if I were her, I'd be a little bit concerned about where I am in terms of my form right now.
Yeah. Well, Leighton, you're not going anywhere. You're staying with us because we're going to do Zone Update 2, and when we come back, we have to talk the Barbados Grand Prix. So stay in your position.